Yes, thanks, Justin. This is Jamie Green. Thanks for coming. We're going to do a simple introduction here and then get to work. So the main reason I think that we're here and this program exists is that there's this really clear understanding that Central Ohio is growing and changing in significant ways. Many, if not all of you, know that Morpsey is projecting in less than 30 years now, we've got another 1 million people coming here. We do have choices about, to make about how we live and grow in this community. It doesn't have to be, happenstance, even though the settlement patterns may be that way. I think it's clear to many of us is that they're really, if Lincus is going to fulfill its promise, there's never been an opportunity like the one we have right now. We have seen over time, limited opportunities to do this. I think I would argue you have to go back almost to 1908 to figure out the last time the city took on something this significant. We have made infrastructure improvements like in 70 and 71 that have been profound. Lincus gives us another profound opportunity to make places, great places that are more equitable, that are more competitive in what we're trying to do here in the region. So, but in order to have success, it requires collaboration. And I think it's really extraordinary, the collaboration that exists already on this effort, but it's just the beginning to link us. So our agenda here, at this point, we have about 55 minutes left and we've got a lot we want to do. We're going to move pretty quickly. Hopefully you'll appreciate that. I want to share some updates in the process, what we've heard so far, talk about some alternative evaluation, talk about transit supported development, and then the upcoming public engagement opportunities. So as I said earlier, my name is Jamie Green. I've been helping with the Lincus project. Justin Goodwin will be joining us here in this discussion, as well as Stephen Stansberry and Zach Sunderland. So just a quick overview, a reminder for many of you and new for others. Go ahead, Justin. So in terms of how we describe Lincus, we really see this as a transformative and comprehensive initiative about prosperity and mobility for the region. It's not just about mobility, it's about the other quality of life issues. And if we do this and do this well, it's about equitable mobility options for residents and visitors. It's about job creation and housing affordability. It's about promoting economic growth and improving the sustainability of the region. Next. So just in terms of a simple timeline, Lincus just didn't appear out of nowhere. It actually is the culmination or one more step along the way from an effort that began back in 2014 with Insight 2050, followed by the Next Gen effort by CODA, and then another effort that Morpsey led, but about corridor concepts. So taking everything that had been learned in those other two and bringing those together in this initiative to actually implement. In 2020, there were two of the major corridors that were actually launched, the Northwest and the East and West together, the partnerships between the agencies, and then came together and have yielded these goals about Lincus. And there's language that's more detailed here, but Lincus has got outcomes expected in improving equity, improving workforce advancement, improving innovation, improving economic development, affordability, and sustainability. Those are detailed on the website if you're interested. Okay, next. So I mentioned the two corridors. In the light faded colors, you'll see other corridors that have been identified, but the two that were launched in 2020 are the Northwest corridor that we're focused on today, and then the East-West corridor that you see in the green line going from 270 to 270. So Justin's going to take it from here.
Thanks, Jamie. Again, I'm Justin Goodwin, Transportation Planning Manager with the City of Columbus, Project Manager for the Northwest Corridor Study. Hopefully a number of you were able to take part in either our earlier set of focus groups, and I know when we had the slide up earlier, it did seem like the majority of you had, so there's a little bit of background that you're all familiar with. as well as the public survey that we had up online through the fall. So we've engaged between 750 to 800 individuals through both our stakeholder workshops that we did back in August through November, as well as the online engagement that we've done. And we've been processing all of that data, and we now have a report of the community engagement thus far that's available on the website at linkascolumbus.com. I invite you to check that out under the resources page. And now we're moving into a next round of public engagement, starting with this series of stakeholder touch points with all of you this week, and then online engagement and other public virtual sessions in February. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And then also the East-West Corridor is starting its first round of public engagement. So really quickly, what are the types of things that we've heard thus far through engagement? Really a strong desire for more sustainable transportation options, more active transportation, bicycle and pedestrian improvements, a lot of interest in improved transit infrastructure, dedicated transit infrastructure, better service, and also physical infrastructure. A recognition that there are trade-offs to be made, and a lot of willingness to accept perhaps slightly longer car rides if it means that we're getting high quality travel choices and safety enhancements in our community. A definite desire to see less auto-centric development patterns and an importance placed on quality walkable places. For the Northwest Corridor, most of what we've heard is a concern about the auto-oriented development pattern and overall design, both public infrastructure and private development. When we've asked people to think about future growth in the corridor, what are the views around how people should be traveling, whether it's commuting through the Northwest Corridor or to destinations within it in the future? Overwhelming interest, you see 80% here, and interest in some combination of walking, biking, riding transit as that alternative to having to rely on the single occupant vehicle. And we've asked people to think about what the future of development could look like, specifically as we're talking about investing in transit infrastructure and creating transit stations in the future with development oriented around those stations. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that could mean in a little bit here. What should be prioritized? Overwhelming desire, again, for walkable and attractive places, integrating development with the surrounding neighborhood, and making sure that those stations are accessible by various transportation modes, with a really strong interest in making sure that development is really connected to surrounding areas and to the transportation system rather than being isolated individual developments. So with that, we want to let you know what we've been working on over the past few months from a technical analysis perspective with regard to potential high capacity transit and rapid transit investments. So where we're at thinking about the implementation of a high capacity transit project, you can think about this as essentially being in the pre-planning stages for the Northwest Corridor. Ultimately, we want a project that is going to be successfully competitive for federal funding, moving through the Federal Transit Administration funding process. And there's a number of technical steps that projects have to go through in order to get that federal funding. We are at this first stage. Eventually that would take us to what's called project development, moving through more detailed engineering and design, and ultimately to construction. And we know from our first round of engagement, there's a lot of interest in how quickly are we talking about implementing something. Those are details that we'll be working out through the implementation plan as we close up this phase of work in the first quarter or so of 2021 here. That will better inform how quickly actual implementation could move forward. So we set some early objectives when we started the Northwest Corridor project, working with leadership of each of the partner agencies to understand what we're really trying to achieve here. We do want something that is relatively quick to implement. Again, it will and often does take many years to move through a pre-project development phase all the way through project development and implementation. But time's of the essence, and there's a strong desire to move something as quickly as possible, again, being federally competitive, and supporting both existing development and land use and the future development potential in the corridor. We did look at two modes for transit, BRT and LRT, light rail and bus rapid transit. Through the technical evaluation to date, we have arrived at a recommendation to proceed with bus rapid transit as the best fit for the Northwest Corridor. It's been identified as the most federally competitive, the most timely to construct. It's compatible with anticipated ridership in this corridor. It's very consistent with previous planning efforts that CODA has led through its next-gen plan a few years ago, which also anticipated BRT as the likely most viable mode for the Northwest Corridor. Brings value to cost, is cost effective, which is really important, again, to pursuing that FTA funding. And it's adaptable as we look ahead to emerging technologies, to the changes that are happening in the transportation world. We want to make investments that are going to be flexible over time and that we can build on and really best serve the community as things change in this corridor and as we develop a larger system with some of the other planning efforts like the East-West corridor. So what do we mean when we say BRT? What could it look like when we're thinking about rapid transit in this corridor? There are a series of elements. Those of you who have taken part in our earlier focus group sessions, you'll recall some conversation around the premium elements of rapid transit. This includes specifically things like dedicated transit right-of-way and high-quality world-class stations. Those are the types of things that we're looking to invest in here. Level boarding stations. You can see a picture here of somebody taking a bike directly onto a vehicle. Off-board fare payment. Modern adaptable vehicles. So really, it's a next phase of transit service and infrastructure investment that we haven't seen in Central Ohio to date.